Hello, good morning, all, and welcome to the New York City chapter of Cyversity's celebration on National Mentoring Month. Um, we have a pretty distinguished panel here. Some are still filling in, but I just wanted to start by thanking you all for joining us and kind of giving you a quick 30-second overview of kind of uh, National Mentoring Month and how it's uh, impacted Cyversity's mission. So National Mentoring Month is a national campaign dedicated to recognizing mentoring and the impact it has on people's lives, whether it's developing employees, supporting young people, inspiring and preparing college students, or guiding those undergoing a career transition. Mentoring enables people to unleash their full potential by learning from others. National Mentoring Month at Cyversity is a time to celebrate the power of mentoring and encourage others to explore how mentoring can enhance their career outlook uh, and those of the members of our Cyversity community. Cyversity believes there's a strong need for all to get involved, and it's not something we want to leave to chance, as chance is not working. When it comes to improving the progress and growth of cybersecurity careers, similar to other career paths, cybersecurity continues to lag behind when it comes to women and people of color. So Cyversity's mission to achieve consistent representation of women and underrepresented minorities in the cybersecurity industry through programs designed to diversify, educate, and empower. We believe an active mentoring community is a key tool in our tool belt to make sure we achieve that representation. And with that in mind, I want to kind of introduce our esteemed guests that we have here today to talk about their experiences as mentors or as mentees and how it has impacted their careers. So we'll start with, I'll give everyone all of these individuals have pretty distinguished careers. So I'm going to give a very brief highlight of their career, just their titles, where they are currently now, uh, um, and not so much of a history because we have quite a few folks today on the line with us. So we'll start with Aric Perminter. He's the founder and chairman of Lynx Technology Partners. He's here with his mentee, Vanessa Joseph, who's a cyber threat detection analyst at Lynx. We have Taiye Lambo, who is a former CISO and a founder of the Holistic Information Security Practitioner Institute, better known as HSPI, and his mentee, Kevin Dodson, who's a cybersecurity consultant and diversity and inclusion champion. We have Laura Diener, who's our CISO at Northwestern Mutual, and her mentee, Heena Ruparel, who's the associate director of engineering at Northwestern Mutual. And we have a few special guests who add their expertise to the conversation. Devon Bryan, who's the global CISO for Carnival, and David Elcock, who's the founder and principal managing partner of Austin Brooklyn Associates. So welcome all, and thank you all for joining and your willingness to lend your expertise to this discussion. So we're gonna break this out into kind of two phases of discussion. We're going to talk to the mentor-mentee pairs first. As I mentioned to our panelists, that even if you're not here as a as part of a mentor-mentee pair, we encourage you to jump in and add your expertise if there's a topic that's not addressed to you that you feel you have some valuable input on. So again, thank you, and we want to make this an open conversation. There's a chat function in the room that you can always, any one of the guests can jump in and ask questions or add comments. We encourage lively interaction there. We've had some pretty good interaction there in the past. And we will say 15 minutes at the end to address any questions that weren't addressed during the first couple of minutes. So we'll get started here. So I'll start with the mentor-mentee pairs, and I'll just ask, the groups to kind of talk about how they fell into this relationship, how, how did you decide you wanted to be a mentor or a mentee, and how you found your mentor or mentee. So I'll start with Kevin. I see you're in the middle of my screen, so I'll start with you, and you can just go around the horn and people can just talk about their experience and how we got here.
Awesome. Okay, well, it is an honor to be on this call. Mentoring and mentorship is important to me. It has truly impacted my life and my career trajectory. How I fell into this as a mentee, excuse me, has been a friend introduced me. Just kind of knew my background and overall just trajectory in my life. I just ran across them at a gas station, honestly, and they spoke into my life. Was like, hey, I know a friend who was in cybersecurity at the time. I was just doing general IT work, and that's how I was introduced into Taiye. And during that introduction, it took a while before he took me on as a mentee, but he began to feed into me, kind of saw my qualities as far as my abilities or my desire to be in the IT world or into cybersecurity world, and he just began to pour into me. He was like, "Hey, listen, I got the perfect program to get you into governance. You seem like you like project management, you like program management, you have these different skills." I was in logistics and I gotten hurt, so I couldn't do the work I used to be able to do, and so I was a career changer. Next thing I know, he took me under his wing, began to show me the ropes on how to evaluate organizations, how to assess programs, how to build programs. I went through the HSPI GRC program or the HSPI foundational program to understand, cybersecurity and what that program looked like. And lo and behold, here 2 years later, I think I was telling some of the other guys, I recently accepted an opportunity as a virtual CISO. So my career, right, my career actually was hugely impacted, first being introduced from cybersecurity and understanding how that program going, and then, regular checkpoints where, very candid and honest conversations about you've got to do this, or you can't drop the ball on this, or when you're dealing with clients you can't you can't be laxed at what you do, and holding me accountable. I think that's the one thing that I got hugely out of mentoring is the accountability piece. Somebody who could check me, that I felt inclined to listen to, respected who he was, what he offered, and said, okay, I'm going to follow this roadmap. If I don't do anything else, I'm going to stick with it and see where it takes me. If I don't give it that opportunity to be mentored, I wouldn't be here. I could have obviously said, okay, I'm 20 years long in one career and I can stick with it, or I think I know what I'm doing and I'm just going to go my own way, and I wouldn't be here today. I wouldn't be at this role. This is a huge thing for me. So to those who do hear me, you have to be humble enough to take instruction to be a good mentee, and by doing so, have the respect for your mentor to say, hey, I'll listen to what you have to say. I'll take what you have to say. I'll write notes. And to be honest, I have a couple of people that I now mentor, which they came to me and I wasn't looking for them. They just said, hey, listen, I see what you're doing. How are you get there? And my passion just kind of poured out in that way. So that's my take on being a mentee and turning that into the next phase. So,
Thank you. Anyone else? Ty, I see you shaking your head.
Sorry, I couldn't help but respond to that. So I think Kevin gives me way too much credit than I deserve. If anyone can put up with me, my wife will be the first to tell you. It usually pays off, right? But I'm a bit of a purist. I'm a bit of a type A personality, even though I'm soft-spoken, but I'm a bit of a knucklehead sometimes. But especially when I believe in what I'm doing, I just go for it. So, like I said, Kevin probably gives me way too much credit. Kevin was already ready-made for mentoring. He had all the attributes of what I consider to be a good mentee. And I'll just sum up those attributes in maybe 3 points. So having that, to be humble, to be hungry and teachable, I'll put that into one category altogether. And then the ability to be able to invest in yourself. We all need that, right? So no matter what stage you're at, we all need mentors. One of my mentors is actually on the line, Aric. They probably should have paired me up with Aric, because Aric is my mentor. Especially as a business guy, I'm still learning a lot, and there's a lot of trial and error. It's more error than trial. And I really look up. So at every point in our lives, we have to look up to someone that has gone ahead of us and paved the way for us in the things we're trying to do. But I think going back to the qualities of a good mentee like Kevin is also just being hungry. I think it's really, and having the right attitude, I think it's very key. I'm going to try and follow the script, Kurby. So why did I decide to become a mentor? People like Kevin, people just came to me. And I think back to, when I was reading that question, Kurby, like, when did I really start this journey of being a mentor? And it actually started when I was like 16. So at the age of 16, I was born and raised in Nigeria, grew up in academia. Both my mom and dad are retired professors. And one of we lived on campus, at a huge, massive university campus. And one of our neighbors, few houses away, but in the same community, just approached me and said, hey, I hear you have a chemistry set. And I'm like, how did you know? Like, everybody knows you have a chemistry set, and can I have it? And I'm like, actually, I still look at it, but I don't use it. I haven't used it for a few years. By this time, I'm in college. So I gave him my chemistry set. And I ran into, and then we became friends. He'll come for advice. I'll give him advice. And I reached out to him a couple of years back, by which time, and this was like 30-something years ago, this kid, I call him a kid because he was younger than I was, had done his PhD in electrical engineering from Stanford, and he was top of his class. Currently, I think he works for Apple. He's one of like the principal engineers at Apple. And that's what gives me pride and joy. Like, the stuff that I couldn't do, I just barely made it through college, right, in Nigeria, studying electrical engineering. There was not in my wildest dreams would I have qualified to go to Stanford. This kid went to Stanford, right, and was top of his class, PhD. And he now works for Apple as one of the principal engineers. Like, I couldn't do that in my wildest dreams, right? I just wasn't that academically inclined. Yeah. So that's how my mentoring journey started, and since then it's been, the rest is history.
Yeah. So it sounds like that impact, right? So you were able to make impact even by just donating that chemistry set to the young man.
I never got it back though. I still keep asking him for my chemistry set, but hopefully
he can buy you a new one now.
Yeah. Right.
So Aric, since you have multiple mentees on this call, maybe you can just talk about your journey into mentorship. And if you can throw in there, maybe in your mindset, what makes a successful mentor-mentee pair, and maybe some do's and don'ts for those out there who are looking for a mentor or a mentee.
Yeah. Yeah, sure, absolutely. And thanks for having me here as well, Kurby. I really do appreciate being a part of the conversation. I think my first exposure to mentoring occurred from my mom. She was a part of the Boys and Girls Club, and she used to take me with her to, support her little sister. And so that was the first time that I actually seen that, someone outside of our immediate family deserves support, right? And you just don't even need to know them. What really made me begin to action, my mentorship was really about being able to accept that I had something to give first and foremost, right? Because there was a long time where I just felt like I needed to, take care of my own stuff to make sure I was ready to be in a position to mentor somebody. So first was really just accepting it, but the other side of it was really accepting how important mentorship was to me, right? My business colleague and someone that I truly consider a mentor is on the line with us as well, David Elcock. I remember he was one of the first ones that actually seen me running fast in business and said, Aric, slow down, right? Slow down. There's other things that you could be doing. So I understood the value of mentoring. What I think what makes a mentor really good is understanding that they're there for their mentee more than they are for themselves, first and foremost. And then secondly, understanding that they themselves will always be a mentee, right? We can always continue to learn. And I don't think that ever ends. And then I think lastly, also accepting that as a mentor, you can never stop teaching, right? You don't enforce your teachings on folks, but for those that come to you and ask for it, you know, don't throttle it, open it up, and truly lean in with that mentee, and it will yield its own results.
Awesome. So I'll turn to you, Vanessa. So how did you know you were ready to be a mentee, that you needed a mentor, right? And how did you connect with Aric, or previous mentors? Did you go up and ask, you know, hey, I need a mentor, would you be my mentor, you know?
Yeah. So I knew that I needed more support and guidance when it came to having a plan for after college. So I signed up for the mentorship program through ICMCP, and I was actually assigned to a different mentor at first, and it didn't work out. So I reached out to Aric, and I knew, you know, he'd be willing to help, and he was kind of just like, let's get started. And we started having monthly calls. And something that really helped me was that at the end of each call, he would always make sure that I had 2 to 3 goals written down that I would have to work on. And then we would discuss any updates during the next call. I think that's something that really held me accountable and kept me on track with, you know, everything else going on as far as school. And it didn't make me overwhelmed. It was kind of like one thing at a time. And so I also think that my senior year, and probably other people can relate to this, where you're approaching those last couple months before graduation, and there's a lot of pressure to have a plan once you graduate. And I knew that working with someone one-on-one would really help to alleviate some of that pressure and anxiety I was having. And Aric played a huge part in helping me with that, and helping me to kind of narrow down what it was that I wanted to do and help me get to that point.
So what I've heard from a number of people, even on the mentor and mentee side, is that self-awareness, either, you know, that self-awareness to know that you have something to give, or something that you need something in return, you know. So that's cool.
Hey,
Laura,
Kurby,
yes,
Kurby, I'm sorry, I got to chime in for really quick. I got to say this. It was so funny because when I met Vanessa, there was no doubt in my mind, from my perspective, that she knew where she was going. She prepared herself to get there, and there was absolutely nothing standing in her way other than herself, right? And she was so bought into this script of finishing school, getting the next degree, going into the work world. And I said, you can do all of that, but accelerate your plan as part of the process. And Vanessa, correct me if I'm wrong, it took us about 4 months for me to convince you, right, that you could be a little bit more flexible around that plan. Maybe you could touch a little bit on that, because plans change for the good, not necessarily for the bad.
Definitely, yeah, it kind of goes back to what made our relationship as mentor-mentee very successful, is that, like, Aric always pushed me out of my comfort zone. He always challenged me. And after getting my bachelor's, like he said, I had this plan. I'm just going to continue school. I'm not ready to, you know, figure out what it is that I want to do. And I was going to continue going to school full time for my master's. And Aric approached me with a full-time job opportunity and was basically like, you're going to do both. Like, you're going to go to school full time. You're going to start this job, get the ball rolling, kind of get your feet wet. And it ended up being one of the most challenging years for me, but it really taught me that I am capable than a lot more than I thought I was, being a senior in college. So I'm very thankful for that. And I'm happy that I got to have that experience, because now I know, I could just, if I want to go back to school, I don't have to get super overwhelmed and worried about it. I know I've already done it. And yeah, I'm really thankful for that experience.
Sounds like you needed someone else to tell you there's more than just one way to kind of,
Definitely.
to achieve your goal, right? There's different, told you to be flexible.
Yeah.
Laura and Heena, if you could talk about your relationship, like obviously you're both very senior people. How long have you been working together? What makes it work, right? So you think of mentees
Sure.
sometimes as that college person like Vanessa, but you obviously have both, pretty successful careers. So.
Oh, thank you. And like I owe Heena so much, because I've learned so much from her as she approached me. So just, spoiler alert, she approached me. I've been at this company almost a year. So our relationship's actually fairly new. And she asked me to be her mentor, and I asked her why, and she gave me amazing reasons. So I'm not going to spoil anything that she's going to say, but look, the reason why I decided to be a mentor is two reasons. Somebody has been a mentor to me throughout my career, and I say somebody over my career, which I hate saying this, is like 22 years long. I really hate saying that. Because in my head, I'm still 10 years old. But over those years, I've had different mentors, and I've taken so much from that relationship. And honestly, I want to pay it forward. That's the big reason why I wanted to be a mentor. But also, we're sharing such great personal stories. And look, I learned pretty early on that not a lot of people look like me in computer science. Not just because of my own cultural background. I'm from Morocco, so big up to Africa. I'm from Morocco. And look, I didn't see a lot of females, right? I didn't see a lot of women or anybody who identified as a woman when I was in my computer science class. I think I was one of 5 in a computer science class of 500, I'd say. And so what I felt was really important was that anybody else who felt the same way I did those, 22 years ago could say, oh, look, she's there. I want her to mentor me. And so I really feel like this is important because there's a lot of underrepresentation in the field of technology, but also in the field of cybersecurity, which is why I love Cyversity. And it's important that we take the time. Right now, the time is the important piece, right? Because I wanted to make sure that I could dedicate the time, right? I want to make sure that I'm able to practice empathy, which is super important, because my career path could be very different from everybody else's, or even what they want. I loved hearing Vanessas story, and Aric, I think you should be my mentor too. But the empathy and the time, and then really knowing what you want to get out of the relationship is just so important. And with Heena, I felt like we had the trifecta, right? She knew what she wanted in this conversation that we were having, and I definitely dedicated the time one-on-one with her. We also had a WIT squad, so we had a women in technology squad here at Northwestern Mutual, so that was a lot of fun. So we got to see each other in kind of a different way, but also we had all this one-on-one time. And so I love it. I am constantly doing mentor-mentee relationships. I do have boundaries. I can't take on too many because again, it's so important that I'm practicing that time, right? I have to give you the time, and I have to understand what you're looking for and practice that empathy. And Heena will tell you, I definitely gave constructive feedback. And that was part of our rules, right, Heena? So I said, like, you have to be willing to hear what I have to say. And I think maybe that was like maybe the second go round, right? It was like the second time we met. I think she heard my honest feedback.
Okay. All right. So Heena, why did you pick Laura as your mentor?
She's amazing. That's about it. So Laura mentioned she has been at the company for a short period, and I had seen her speak at different engagements and just heard how amazing she is. sometimes when you hear that about people, that's not how they are one-on-one. So when we had the opportunity to meet, I actually asked her, like, do you mind just connecting? Can we have a conversation? Because I wanted to see if that connection was there one-on-one and it would be a growth opportunity. I was in an mental block of stuck in my career, stuck in a lot of things and just not sure where to go. I have a couple of mentors, and I am also a mentor to others. So I appreciate time, and I want a quality time. I don't want to be a checklist. I don't want to say somebody needed 2 people to mentor or anything like that. So when we connected at the end of the conversation, I had asked her, do you mind if we continue this conversation? Because it was important for me for both of us to have that connection. Honesty is very important. And like Laura said, she did give very constructive, honest feedback. Did I like it? Sometimes no, but I needed to hear it, right? And that's the understanding that the intent of it was to help me grow and help me really do some soul searching on it. And that was important for me. So no matter where I am in my career, I think it's always important to have that mentor-mentee relationship to help you along, and not just, I think it's very important not to hear what you want to hear all the time. Empathy is very important, but honesty is also very important. And those, it's an and, not an or.
I'll ask this to anyone on the panel, Devon or David, if you want to jump in. I'm just curious. I've heard, I think Taiye and Kevin say there was an actual, I want you to mentor me. It sounds like Heena, your relationship with Laura was more of, let's continue to talk. Is there ever a discussion of, okay, you're officially my mentor? How do you ask that for someone who may be younger in their career? How do I go up to someone and say, I want you to be my mentor? Or is it just, you're just kind of keeping it casual, you're dating, eventually you're going steady, but no one ever says,
well,
be my girlfriend.
Heena did say, I want you to be, Heena, you said, I want you to be my mentor.
That's
and
true,
we did have a conversation of what that meant, right?
Yes.
Because sometimes people mix up mentorship and sponsorship.
Yes.
Right. And I wanted to be very clear about what I was doing for her, because if she wanted me to sponsor her, I needed to see her work before I did that. For the mentor-mentee relationship, it was just like, what are you looking to get out of it? And we made that very clear in the first meeting. Then it became a conversation.
So for maybe for those of you who have mentors, what should that person come with? What do they need to come to the table with, that will give you the best chance of saying, yes, I'll be your mentor, and the best chance of success with that relationship going forward?
Hey, Kurby, can I answer your first question that you posed to Devon, and myself? And then I'll keep it real brief. This thing has levels to it. Not everybody's ready for Devon or a Taiye or a Aric when they step into wanting to be a mentor. This thing has levels. So, my process has always been to work with a person exactly where they are and help build them to the level where they can be, and then start outsourcing or resourcing guys like Devon or Larry or Aric, who's been my mentor too. Right, we've just been back and forth with mentorship. It's been a real interesting lifelong experience with Aric, and I've known him almost 30 years. So this thing has levels, and so you start where you start, and you begin to develop and develop. And sometimes you don't come to the table with all of that passion. So I can't, you can't step in front of somebody like a Julian Waits if you don't have all the passion. And then you got to come with, nowadays you got to come with some skills and some capabilities, some coding, or I read an article in McKinsey about, you got to have something when you come to the table. You got to have done something for someone to look at you and say, hey, this is worthwhile putting the effort and the time into. And so this thing definitely has levels. And as you approach each level, you increase your capability, you increase your style, you increase your competency, and then you get an opportunity to work with some of the luminaries in the industry as they see your capabilities and your propensity for success. I know back in Lynx, right? In Lynx, we had an OKR sheet. That OKR sheet set expectations for what you wanted to do. And I use that in my mentoring today. I fill out an OKR sheet, and we know what to expect at the end of the day. And we start from the end and work our way backwards to where you are today, and just start growing and growing and putting you in the right place where you need to be. So I'm the least.
Could you expand on OKR? What
OKR is, it's objectives and key results, sort of a process that we use to set expectations and accomplish those goals, right? You got to have a step. You look at Aric and Vanessa, they've got a step-by-step process to get to where they're going. And that process, you utilize that process to grow and develop the individuals that you mentor. I got into this whole mentoring. I think Aric just kicked me down the stairs and I landed into mentoring. I've served this organization in several positions. And the latest one is Cyversity Impact, which happens to be an alumni program for all mentors, mentees, to come and see what Cyversity has for you after life, after mentee life, so that you can begin to give back. This whole process is really part of that delivering and informing and creating and supporting our most valuable asset, and that's mentees. So I'm going to stop talking right now.
I've heard a lot of kind of advice about what, and I'm sorry we lost Devon. Hopefully he can join us back. I did really want to thank him because I'll mention again if he joins, but when I reached out to him, I had about 2 volunteers. And after he got a hold of the email, I had 10 volunteers. I had to back people down and reject some pretty awesome folks. So I did want to thank him. But I wanted to ask, we heard a lot of comments about, what to do, come prepared, have some self-awareness and know that you need help. What are some don'ts? What are some things that, someone might come to you and say, I need a mentor, and you look, they present their case and you're like, not for me. What are some things that turn you off as, or reduce the person's chance of success of you saying yes to be their mentor? And I'll throw that to anyone who wants to answer it. I see Aric raising his hand.
Coming for the wrong reasons, Kurby, right? Coming for the wrong reasons. I've had individuals come looking to be mentored when the reality is they really just want a job. And look, if you want a job, let's just talk about your skills. I think, Laura, to your point, right? If you're looking for a sponsor, let's look at your qualification first, and then I may sponsor you. But if this is a mentoring discussion, then let's mentor.
Exactly.
That's number one. The other thing is, and Heena touched upon this. Be if you're not ready for the truth, then don't ping me for mentoring, because I don't know how to lie, right? Especially when it comes to trying to improve someone's ability to execute, I take that just too serious. And then I think the other thing is, be realistic about what you're trying to accomplish. In that, because if you're telling me that you want to be a CISO in 24 months, that's not me. I'm going to send you to Taiye and have you go through the HSPI program, right? And let him do that, because I'm just not the right fit. So you got to be honest about what you're trying to accomplish and be realistic about being able to commit to doing what you need to accomplish it.
Anyone else want to jump in on that?
No, I love that, Aric. That's great. Yeah, I think that's appropriate, but also I think I'm going to speak about my own personal journey. I suffered a lot from imposter syndrome. I still suffer from imposter syndrome, and my boss will actually tell you that there's a lot of research called Dunning-Kruger effect. If you guys, I'll throw the link in the chat. That actually says that there's dips and valleys in your kind of knowledge, and you may think that you're an imposter, but it's actually just part of the process of becoming an expert. And what has happened for me personally is just that I've realized that I had these, I know nothing, I know a lot, or I think I know a lot, but actually I don't know anything. And then I go through this valley of despair where it's like, I don't know anything, right? And that's where these like imposter syndrome, where I feel like I'm a fraud, come up. And I have to develop these techniques to help me prepare for even this panel, right? So I that's just my own personality. And that actually, being honest about those things actually helps tremendously. You see Heena, she's saying yes, because we talked a lot about all of this, right? A lot of women in technology or in cybersecurity tend to have this imposter syndrome effect or this Dunning-Kruger effect. And having the right mentor to help you recognize that, first of all, that you are feeling this way. And I think I heard a little bit of this, you know, Aric and Vanessa, that you are not an imposter. You're ready. You just have to get to that next level, right? Sometimes that's all you need, right? You just need to have those kinds of conversations. And where I've seen it not work well is when people are still at this peak of Mount Stupid, where they're just not realizing that I don't know everything, and I'm actually going to get a lot out of this conversation if I could just be real, right? And once that happens, like, the world opens up for you. You will start to realize that you have a lot to learn, but that's okay. You'll start to get better and better over time, and you'll get to this point where you will be the CISO if that's what you want to be, right? Not in 24 months, but but definitely you will be if that's your goal, right?
So if I can just real quick on that same note, I was absolutely at the peak of Mount Stupid. Information overload. You know, I thought I knew everything or knew just enough to be dangerous about a little everything. And like Ty said, if you're not humble enough to be able to get smacked down a little bit, that readjustment of your true skill level and what you really understand, then you can't really figure out how to get to the next level that you need to get to. Being willing to learn, being willing to take that, like we say, correction. You know, knock me down a few pegs. It may be a little piece of humble pie that you got to swallow, but once you do that and you assert yourself, you'll be able to accelerate. I know I may not be. I know 24 months is a fast way to get to where I wanted to go, and trust me, the shock of being accepted, but also realizing that I put a lot of work into it. You know, like, I spent the time studying the material, you know, reading and learning that, okay, as this role, or if I'm really into cybersecurity, it's not enough just to have the mentor point me in the right direction and hand me the stuff. I got to read it. I got to go for a little bit further to do the research, to join the groups, to get in the conversation, to take the feedback and apply it to my personal situation in order to say, hey, this guy knows what he's talking about. He's really ready to get to this next level and get that opportunity. So that's your responsibility. You at least owe that to the person who takes the time to say, I want to be your mentor. That's huge. But also be honest with your mentor to say, hey, I'm not ready for it, and that's fine. Mm-hmm. Or I think I'm ready for it, and let your mentor evaluate you and take you what they said. And if Ty would have told me, hey, come back in 6 months when you've done this work and done this study, I would have had to swallow that and say, okay, now I know what to do to get to where I want to go. And in 6 months, be like, hey, you told me to come back in 6 months. That persistence also earns you that extra step to say, okay, I'll give you that. You're persistent. You're consistent. You're ready to go, and you'll get there in that role. So I just had to throw that out there.
So just a little disclaimer in case there's misconceptions. It's almost impossible to become a CISO in 24 months. So in Kevin's case, he already had 29 years of being a servant leader, being a jack of all trades and a hustler, you know, 3 things combined, right? So he already had the qualities of what a good, especially a virtual CISO, not enterprise CISO, maybe a little bit different because of all the politics and, you know, the thanklessness of the job. But a virtual CISO typically works with like small, medium-sized businesses, you know, typically minority-owned, women-owned, veteran-owned businesses like the one he currently works for. And it's a very unique skill set that you need. You have to think like a consultant, right? You can't think about getting into politics or, you know, different turf. You have to be very collaborative. But all the qualities that I mentioned that a mentee needs to have, you know, being humble, being, I have to write it down because I can't remember, hungry, being teachable, all those things kind of culminates in making that individual like the perfect mentee for that, you know, CISO or VCISO track. But I have to say that Kevin already had a lot of life experience, both professional and personal, that really made him ideal to. And it really started with, I think, Kevin, it was like 2 years ago, you were shadowing me on the BCSO gig. And I remember, this is very weird. And Kevin, you'd probably be a little bit embarrassed when I share this. So literally, Kevin was the cybersecurity analyst, right? Had some education, had some training. And 2-3 months into the project, the client was like, we think we need to cut back on Kevin's time. It was all part-time, it was fractional. And I'm like, why? Well, we're paying X amount, and we feel like we may not be getting the best bang for our buck. I said, Kevin? Kevin actually does the bulk of the work. You realize I just do the talking and he actually does the work. So I said, no, I feel like I'm your virtual CISO. I know what's best for you. And I said, respectfully, I would still want to continue the arrangement with Kevin. This is the CEO of the company. This is my VCSO client. So fast forward like 6 months after that, where this client is going through an ISO recertification audit, and all the kudos went to Kevin. Like the client never actually thanked me. So Kevin and I are having this sidebar conversation. I'm like, Kevin, did you notice what happened in that final meeting? Like, they're actually thanking you that they were trying to get rid of 6 months ago. And suddenly now they're thanking you. Kevin, it was like, Taiye, I was just as shocked as you are. But I said, Kevin, that goes to show that you've proven yourself to them. Like the fact that they could actually overlook my contribution. I mean, and quite frankly, that was exciting for me. Like somebody they had, prejudged and written off, now is the hero, that saved the project. So, and I say all that to say that it really all boils down to the mentee, right? As a mentee, you're kind of in charge of your own destiny. Somebody can only take you so long or so far. They can only handhold you as much. You have to control your own destiny. But there are 3 things I would say you need to avoid when you're reaching out to a potential mentor. So the first thing is, well, I'll say the things you need to do your homework. Don't approach a mentor, especially somebody who's highly skilled, highly qualified like Devon. I wouldn't include myself because I just talk a lot, and I tell a lot of stories. And people sometimes like that. I don't know why. But Devon, when you want to approach somebody like Devon, you got to do your homework. Like you got to find out what makes Devon tick. Right. And don't do it in a desperate way. I mean, don't stalk him, please. I mean, that would put him off. Don't start asking about his kids and Devon, you're about to be a grandkid or something. Don't start going into that. Like, that's just like, I mean, for a security guy, that's just weird. Let's just call a spade a spade. So don't appear desperate, but do your research, do your homework, get into their mindset. So it's no different from when I've been a CISO roles. I literally know how the CEO of the company or the mayor of the city, how they're thinking. And I align what I'm trying to do to what matters to them, right? And that's usually how I get the buy-in for my program and the funding and everything. So you've got to be able to do that when you're approaching a mentor. The other thing is know what you want. Know what you want from the mentor. I've made a big mistake of asking one of the most highly respected CEOs, African-American CEOs in the country to be my mentor. His name is John W. Thompson. Former IBM exec, became the CEO for Symantec, took them from 600 million to 6 billion, something like that. And he had just retired from Symantec. And he spoke at the Cloud Security Alliance Congress. And I just literally ran, as he was leaving, I ran to him and said, sir, I have one question. I said, could you be my mentor? And he goes, yes. And we had a few mentoring calls, and I just rambled, like those mentoring calls. And I'm thinking this guy was so patient, he probably should have hung up the phone on me and said, you're not ready for my mentoring. But I didn't know what I wanted from him. And then he went on to become the chairman of the board for Microsoft. He serves on various boards, and I just didn't know what I wanted because I've never really had a mentor. So even though I asked him, I didn't know what that actually meant. And I just wasted that opportunity, right? You know, hindsight 2020. So I think I've said enough.
Okay. No, that was awesome. So Devon, thank you for coming back. I know you're busy. I was thanking you in your absence for getting us so many volunteers to join the panel today. We went from 2 to 10, and with one email from you. So thank you.
Don't thank me. Thank everybody who made the time. I know Laura, very, very busy. Taiye, Dave. I mean, everybody's just, has their plates overflowing. That so many folks would make the time to be on the panel. They responded and they accepted, and so folks made the time to be on the panel, and also most important, the folks who took time away from everything they have going on to be part of today's conversation. Thank you so very much. So it's not about me, it's about them.
Devon, we're all here to see how you tick.
How I tick, huh?
So I'll have one more question, then we can probably jump into some Q&A from the
Kurby, can
audience.
I suggest that people ask all the smart questions before Devon gets pulled away again? So since we have him now, just please ask all the smart questions now, please.
I truly apologize that I had to step away. That was, not good. So I apologize.
No worries. I will ask Devon. So can you talk about, there's a lot of people alluding to sponsorship versus mentorship. Can you talk about what that means to you and why, why someone would need a sponsor versus a mentor, and that difference and how you've seen it, play out in your career?
Oh, that's me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So I missed some of this conversation. So I apologize if I'll rehash anything that has already been covered. But I see, sponsorship as being kind of sort of more, not necessarily tactical, but it's more focused on a particular goal, which is to get somebody promoted, right? I need a sponsor to get to, that director role or that executive role or, that board seat or thereabouts, right? So I see sponsorship as being kind of a bit more targeted with a specific desired and designed outcome that is a little bit more singular in nature, if you will. Whereas, mentorship, I see that as a bit more broader, right? And more developmental, if you will. Whereas, sponsorship, I see as, very related, but with a lot more focus on a particular desired outcome, typically a promotion of some sort or positioning of some sort. That's kind of sort of how I'll differentiate the two. And I got a thumbs up from, the wicked smart CISO, my CISO colleague over there in Laura. So I guess I'll run with that.
Now, what I've heard, not through this to the group, I've heard in previous, learnings is that a sponsor selects you. Can you add, maybe someone could tell me, can I go and say, hey, I want you to be my sponsor? Or is that something that a sponsor sees in you and decides to sponsor you for that next job or specific role?
Yeah, I've seen both. I've seen both. Mentorship actually occurred that way too, right? It's a tap on the shoulder, right? As hey, you're new to the organization, and typically that's how I've seen that play out. You're new to the organization, I'm going to pull you under my wing, so to speak. I've seen that happen as well. But yeah, you're right, Kurby. It could certainly play out both ways, and I think, Laura, I stepped on you as you were wading in. So
no, I was agreeing with you. Yeah, I've seen both as well. Again, personally for me, I got a sponsor when I was trying to get promoted at one of the big financial services that I had kind of grown up in. And in that situation, the promotion process was super intense. You needed a sponsor. And I approached a sponsor and asked her if she would be my sponsor. She did not say yes right away. And she was highly respected. And that was one of the reasons I chose her to be my sponsor. And then I can tell you after that, she wound up being my mentor. So she endorsed me essentially in the middle of conversations about whether or not I was ready for the promotion. And then when some of the answers was no, which still pains me today, you know, she decided to mentor me after that. And that's how that relationship happened.
I would just quickly add that some of those conversations that occur behind the scenes, right? You know, come end of year and decisions are being made about bonus payouts, decisions are being made about, you know, promotions to the next level. I mean, having a sponsor in that room advocating for you is certainly to your benefit. You know, because when your name gets called and, you know, the racking and stacking are occurring, these are conversations that there are no minutes, you know, nothing is recorded, right? All off the record, you know, having somebody in the room that's going to say, you know, hey, but what about so-and-so, right? You know, why is this person versus that person? And, you know, how many of these are we, I mean, you know, I think many of us have been there and have kind of like, you know, why is it only 8% of, you know, this segment of the population who are in the, you know, top 1% of the bonus payouts? What about everybody else, right? So I think, you know, those kinds of advocacy, those kinds of sponsorship, you know, really makes a difference to, you know, folks like us.
You know, Kurby, if I can say this one thing, I believe the relationship between the mentor and the sponsor is the development of the whole person, because you are technically astute. However, developing you as a human being, as a person that could be personable, that could be relatable, that could be part of a whole team, that whole mentoring and creation and development of that person as a human person and as a, you know, competent conversationalist or a communicator, right? Because in this business where it's people, process, and technology, developing person as a person, you know, with their capabilities, developing their technical skills, developing their business skills, that whole process develops in mentoring and transfers to sponsoring when that person that's sponsoring you can see that they can sponsor you because you're a complete package, a package that's worthy of putting in front of folks, as Devon mentioned, for that end of the year conversation. So I believe there's a real connection between mentoring and sponsoring to create a real person capable of being a part of that executive C-level suite or that upper level management suite.
So
I do want to, sorry, shoot, go ahead, Taiye.
Just a quick point. So for me, mentoring is where I normally start, and then that leads to sponsorship. And the reason why is I'm very, very protective of my name. So if I'm going to vouch for someone, I want to make sure that they're trustworthy, if that makes sense. So not just do they have the aptitude, do they have the attitude, and do they have integrity as well, right? Because I don't want anything they do to be a reflection on me. So there's people I've mentored, quite frankly, that I'm not proud of. It's kind of weird. And I just never want my name associated with them ever, right? But that's just me. You know, Aric knows me, I'm a purist, right? And that's part of my strengths and my weaknesses. But I'll give you a real world example. When I worked for the city of Atlanta, the MSISAC had a program called Mentor. It was like a mentor protege program. So they paired me up with a CISO for a very some local government in South Carolina. And I remember every time we went to South Carolina, I tried reaching out to this guy, tried meeting up with him, never met up with him. And he always blew me off when we scheduled 9 out of 10 monthly mentoring calls. Something came up and he would always cancel. And I just saw something on LinkedIn and come to find out this guy had actually been indicted, right? For like embezzling like federal funds, using that to like buy, you know, if you Google it, you could probably find it. South Carolina CISO federal indictment, you find it. And I'm like, sorry, I can't say what I said, you know, because we're on a recorded line, like, what? So that would fall into the category of a mentor that I want to detach myself from. I mean, it was a formal program under MSISAC. There were some red flags about this guy, he just wasn't like, I remember every time we finally got on a call, he talked about how much tools he bought. And I'm like, okay, so where's your program? Well, you know, I have all this money. He literally said on one of the calls, I have way much money that I can spend. And that should have been a red flag for me. Yeah. And that was his downfall. Yeah, sorry. I know, horrible example, but I have to say that I wouldn't consider myself a sponsor for that individual. But yes, I did mentor him. But is it one of my proud mentees? Heck no.
Yeah. I do want to know, we have about 5 minutes left, and I do want to, or 3 minutes left. I did see a question from Curtis in the chat, and I want to kind of direct it to David, if you don't mind. The question was, what's the status of the Cyversity mentor program now? It seems to have signed up last year. I haven't heard anything back. I know that we are looking for more mentors. We have more mentees than mentors right now, but I was hoping you can kind of take us out on and give us an update on the mentor program and how people can get involved.
Talking on mute as I usually do, but listen, the mentor protege program is alive and well. This that program should be starting in February. The last comment that I heard on that was on last Saturday. We were talking about starting in February, and so that whole program is well and it is alive. I suggest that you reach back out to the principals at Mentor Protege. That would be Beverly Benson, and that would also be Ronald Basin, who actually manned that program. And so the short answer to that is that it is well and it's good. I could put my email in the chat, so if you can't get to them, you can get to me, and I can make sure that your information gets to the right people so that you could be handled and mentored.
Okay. Yeah, and again, I'll reiterate as the program's kicking up next month, we have a lot more mentees than mentors. So I think Laura touched on that, and imposter syndrome, and maybe you don't feel like you're ready to be a mentor, but you don't have to be a CISO or a founder to be a mentor. I think if you have the time and you have the willingness in your heart, I would definitely reach out and volunteer. And I think that is it. I do want to thank everyone for joining. There is a survey in the chat that you can fill out to give us your opinion on how you feel the session went. Give us any suggestions for future topics you want the New York City chapter to cover. I will say, if you do want to be a mentee, you can also sign up through Cyversity, but you will have to be a member. So please register to be a member. And I think that will be it. Thank everyone for coming. I appreciate your participation.
Thanks, everyone. This was a lot of fun. Good job.
A lot of fun. Thank you. Great job.
Thank you.
Thank you. Great job.
All right.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.